The Gingerbread Boy, a Kentucky folk tale by Mary Hamilton. There once lived a girl who shared a home with her stepmother. Years earlier, her mother had died and her father had remarried. While her father lived, her stepmother treated her kindly, but after the girl's father died, that woman turned poison mean. She made the girl do all the work around the house and on the farm. When the girl didn't work fast enough, and most days there was no fast enough, the woman beat the girl with a chain. The girl was miserable, but she had nowhere else to go. One morning, when the girl was around 14 years old, her stepmother said, "Today you are going to chop the weeds out of the cotton. Go on out there, and don't come back to the house until you've finished either." She sent the girl out without any breakfast. The girl trudged out to the shed, picked up a hoe, and walked on down to the cotton patch where she began chopping weeds. The girl chopped and chopped. The sun beat down on her. Her stomach growled. Still, she chopped. But as she worked, she thought, "I ought to just run away, but where would I go?" The longer she worked, the more running away seemed like a reasonable idea. Finally, she gave in. She hit the hoe in the tall weeds under an old wagon. Then she walked into some nearby woods. Now, even though the woods were so close that the girl could hear leaves rustle in the slightest breeze, she had never been there before. Her stepmother kept her working so hard, she never even had time to explore the woods right next to the fields. So in no time, she was lost. But that didn't stop her. "I'd rather die out here than go back," she thought, and kept walking. About mid-afternoon, she reached a clearing. In front of her stood an amazing house. The shutters were made of wafer cookies, and gumdrops studded the walls. Oh, the girl was so hungry she couldn't stop herself. She ran up to the window, broke off a bit of shutter, and popped it into her mouth. The door of the house opened. An old woman looked out. "Child," she said, "you must be awfully hungry if you're chewing at my house." The girl swallowed hastily. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she apologized. "I should have never done that. I'm so sorry." "It's all right, child," the old woman said. "You've done no harm that can be undone. Like I said, you must be awfully hungry." The old woman offered her hand. "Come inside and let me feed you a proper meal." The girl went inside, and the old woman did indeed feed her a fine meal. The old woman also told her the girl's stories and jokes. The two of them talked and laughed together. The girl felt a joy she had not known since her mother died. Then the old woman glanced out the window. "Oh, child, it's going to be dark soon," she said. "You need to go on home now." "Oh," sighed the girl, "do I have to go? Couldn't I stay with you?" "No, you need to go home." But the old woman interrupted her. "I know you're living a hard life, but you have to go home." "I was lost when I found your house," the girl protested. "I don't even know how to go home. Please, can't I stay?" The old woman stood. "I'll help you find your way, child." She walked to a cupboard, opened it, reached in, and pulled out a gingerbread boy. She handed the gingerbread boy to the girl, saying, "Put this in your pocket. Eat it after you reach home." The girl put the gingerbread boy in her pocket. She was about to speak again, but the old woman raised her hand, and the girl fell silent. "Your life will be better, child," the old woman assured her. "You'll see." The two of them left the old woman's house. In a very short time, the old woman had led the girl through the woods and within sight of the old wagon. They said their goodbyes. Then the girl retrieved her hoe from under the wagon and trudged on home. When she walked into the house, she smelled freshly baked bread. Her stepmother sat in the kitchen table, knife in hand, slicing the loaf. When she saw the girl, she set down her knife. "I don't know where you've been, but you were not chopping out the cotton like I told you." As she spoke, she leaned over and picked up the chain beside her chair. "Don't think you'll be eating any of this bread." When the girl saw the chain, she ran toward her room. Her stepmother came in after her, whirling the chain. The girl ducked as she ran into her room. She slammed the door and braced herself against it. She could feel the door shudder as the chain struck it again and again. Finally, the stepmother tired and returned to her chair at the table. The girl braced a chair under the doorknob to keep her stepmother out. Then she collapsed on her bed and cried. She cried for her father and her mother. She cried in longing for joy of that afternoon. She cried and she cried. When she was cried out, she rolled over and felt the gingerbread boy in her pocket. She took it out, looked at it, held it by the head, and bit off an arm. Out in the other room, the stepmother sat eating warm bread slathered in butter. Suddenly, her knife flew out from her hand, and whack! It cut her arm off. She couldn't scream. She just stared at her arm on the floor. Back in the bedroom, the girl ate the other arm. Whack! The stepmother's arm landed on the floor. The girl ate a leg. Whack! One leg gone. The girl ate another leg. Whack! Another leg on the floor. The girl broke off the body from the head. Whack! The stepmother's head fell to the floor. After she finished eating the gingerbread boy, the girl fell asleep. The next morning, when the girl walked out of her room, she found her stepmother's bodies in pieces. No blood on the floor, just pieces. The girl knew just what to do. She took a shovel from the shed and she dug a grave. She had worked so hard for so many years. She had no trouble digging a hole 6 feet deep. Of course, she had no need to make it 6 feet long. After all, the body was in pieces. In the times that followed, the girl lived on there in her own house. She and the old woman in the woods became fast friends and the very best of neighbors. The end.